The main event for UFC 291 will be Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje 2, and this is a very interesting matchup with a lot of factors heading into it. Obviously, in their first matchup, Justin Gaethje did end up getting finished by Dustin Poirier. I think it was in like the 4th round or something like that, but Justin Gaethje has gotten better since then, and this one's going to be for the BMF title. Likely, the winner of this matchup will probably get at some point a lightweight title shot. Well, you're not too sure of it because Charles Oliveira is getting the title shot now, and then because Alexander Volkanovski exists and he still wants another crack at Islam Makhachev, he could cut in front of one of these guys, or maybe they make Volkanovski fight Ilia Topuria. But nonetheless, I'm going to do an in-depth prediction and breakdown. Let's get right into the video. We have Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje 2. Dustin Poirier, last fight was a win over Michael Chandler by rear naked choke about 8 months ago. Lost to Charles Oliveira by rear naked choke submission about a year and a half ago. So Dustin Poirier hasn't been the most active between his last couple fights. Of course, Michael Chandler fight 8 months ago. Charles Oliveira, he took about a year off between that fight and the Michael Chandler fight. So he hasn't been too active recently. Obviously won both of those fights against Conor McGregor, the second fight and the third fight, and then won against Dan Hooker by decision. Justin Gaethje's last fight was a win over Rafael Fiziev, which I thought Fiziev won. It probably could have gone either way. I'm completely fine with Justin Gaethje getting the nod there. It was a majority decision win about 4 months ago on the UFC 286 card, I believe in London. Or was that UFC 285? I think it was UFC 286. But Charles Oliveira, he lost to him by submission due to rear naked choke about a year ago. Beat Michael Chandler by a decision. Lost to Khabib Nurmagomedov by submission, and then beat Tony Ferguson by KO to win the interim lightweight title. So this matchup, again, as I said at the beginning of the video, has a lot of factors going into it. So I am going to be breaking down those factors, and I'll get at some point how I think this fight will end up going down. So first of all, one of the big factors heading into this matchup, it is going to be in Salt Lake City, Utah. And the last card that they did in Salt Lake City, Utah was UFC 278, where it was Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards in their second matchup. And really, if you look up and down that card, I can name the fights if you want, like the Rockhold Costa. You saw both of them kind of tire out. You saw Romanov tire out against Marcin Tybura after having a really good first round, just ragdolling him. I'm sure there's a lot of other fights, but those are the two big examples that I could think of. Oh, even like an Aldo Marab, they're kind of tiring out a little bit more. But Kamaru Usman was really the only person not getting affected too much by the altitude. And Justin Gaethje has spent more time at altitude than Kamaru Usman. So I think he'll deal with the altitude changes here a lot better than Dustin Poirier, and a lot better than a lot of the people on this card. Dustin Poirier trains in Miami, lives in Louisiana. So I don't even think there's that big of an altitude change in both of those cities. Like it's just, they call Mile High in Colorado for a reason. I think Justin Gaethje will do very fine here, especially as the fight goes on. Obviously, Dustin Poirier, eventually in his fights, as the fight goes on, he makes his reads and he gets better and better as the fight goes on. But will the cardio kind of affect him in this matchup because it is at altitude, and he is a very active guy on the feet, especially early on in the fight. So that's going to be a really big question mark in this matchup going into it. But Justin Gaethje's last fight against Rafael Fiziev, he definitely showed a different side to him. You saw against Charles Oliveira, he was a little bit more scrappy as Charles Oliveira tried to walk him down. But Justin Gaethje, in his last fight, showed a little bit more of a patient side, and I thought he did really well. I did think I thought he should have lost, but again, it could have gone either way. But I think he did a really good job there. And their first fight with Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje was very wild in there. It felt like he was like just trying to go for leg kicks, play a bit more defensive, and then just try and knock him out. So he's basically, in my mind, trying to just go out on a shield and try to do as much damage as he can. He took a lot of damage in that matchup, but I think a more patient Justin Gaethje will be a little bit more effective against this kind of Dustin Poirier, especially at altitude. With his leg kicks, he's going to be a little bit more patient, so he's not going to be as active on the feet. He'll obviously be active, and he'll obviously be throwing punches, but for a guy like Dustin Poirier, who likes to throw a lot of combos, who's very slick with his boxing and is very active and throws a lot on the feet, this could be a very big problem for him. And I think Justin Gaethje, being the patient guy, not doing too much on the feet, will give him some success in this matchup. So for Justin Gaethje, he also has the chance to lean on some wrestling here. We saw him, I guess, attempt his first takedown against Rafael Fiziev, a very good wrestler in Justin Gaethje. I think I saw someone say Dustin Poirier will take down Justin Gaethje. I thought that was a little crazy. Maybe Justin Gaethje gets knocked down at some point, and then Dustin Poirier goes for a little bit more control and just tries to hop into submissions. Maybe you see that way, but I don't see Dustin Poirier taking down Justin Gaethje. Even saw in the Michael Chandler versus Justin Gaethje fight how athletic Justin Gaethje was. I mean, Chael went on like a whole week spree about how athletic Justin Gaethje was because of the way he defended a takedown. I think he might have hurted Michael Chandler at some point, and he just like drooped over his back and like reversed and got back on his feet. Like he did a really good job scrambling out of that position, even on like the first embedded. You can just see how athletic Justin Gaethje, with like the backflip obviously off the cage after each of his wins, and then even in like the embedded, he's like doing some crazy flips, and you just looking at him, you can't tell how athletic he is, but he's just a super athletic dude, a very good wrestler. He doesn't use it, and I think he's going to be able to scramble out of bad positions if Dustin Poirier ends up going for takedowns. And if you see Dustin Poirier ending up going for takedowns, it is not going to be a good thing. Let's put it that way. If he's looking for takedowns, it means that's kind of his last resort kind of thing. Especially at altitude, it'll definitely tire him out a little bit more. So Dustin Poirier, I don't see going for takedowns. If someone's going to lean on some takedowns, especially towards the end of this matchup, I think it will be Justin Gaethje, just to bank some rounds in there for him. But honestly, I'm not even too sure he will go for a takedown. But I think if someone will, it will probably be Justin Gaethje in this matchup. Maybe someone ends up going for a submission. Maybe you'll see Dustin Poirier, because I think he might be a little bit better in that department. But again, I think he would probably have to knock down Justin Gaethje to really try and submit him there. But going into this matchup, I think I am going to go with Justin Gaethje, and here's why. He showed the more patient side again in his last matchup. If he holds that in this one, I don't think Dustin Poirier will be able to get him to scrap. I think as this fight goes on, you'll see Dustin Poirier start to tire a little bit more. And maybe a possible finish for Justin Gaethje is on the table here. I like a decision, because Dustin Poirier is just a very tough dude to finish. Like in general, I think the last fight he lost by finish was Michael Johnson. Or I'm sorry, not by finish, but by KO. I won't say submission, because I don't think Justin Gaethje will submit him. Obviously, as a Charles Oliveira and Khabib Nurmagomedov fight, but by finish, Michael Johnson, 2016. That was a very, very long time ago. So I don't think Justin Gaethje will finish him. Obviously, he has a chance with the power in his hands, but I think as this fight goes on, he's going to tear up the legs of Dustin Poirier. He did the same thing in their first fight, and he ended up getting finished in that fourth round. And that first fight was relatively close, despite how messy Justin Gaethje was on the feet, just like throwing his hands and having a very wild fight there. And obviously, I'll keep echoing the same idea of him being patient in this one, but I think if he chews up the legs of Dustin Poirier, and the altitude benefiting Justin Gaethje in this matchup is a really, really big problem for Dustin Poirier as this fight goes on. And obviously he makes his reads, but that will hurt him in this matchup. So I am going to go with Justin Gaethje. I think as the fight goes on, he will land a lot more better shots. Maybe he might attempt a takedown. I don't think he will. Maybe we will at some point. But I think Justin Gaethje, his style at this point will allow him to reach more into the later rounds, especially if he keeps the same style as the last one. So I'm expecting a patient Justin Gaethje out there not to make stupid mistakes. And I'm not saying patient to where he's just not doing much. I mean just picking his shots correctly, not over swinging on shots, not making too many mistakes. Holding a game that will kind of just counter Dustin Poirier. But I think he can land some really good shots on Dustin Poirier early on in this fight. And I think he'll benefit as the fight goes on. So for this matchup, I think I'm going to go with a 48-47 decision for Justin Gaethje. Maybe Dustin Poirier wins a couple of the early rounds, although Justin Gaethje could land some really good shots on him and get some of that damage in on the scorecards and for the judges there, which is what they're looking for. And I think as the fight goes on, I think Justin Gaethje will probably land the better shots. I mean, that's how I see it. He has said in the past that he does tire out when he does go for takedowns. So I'm just taking takedowns off the board here. Is it a factor in this? And late in the later rounds, possibly, if Dustin Poirier gets super tired, that's 100% a factor. But I think early on, Dustin Poirier probably does a little bit better than how I think he'll do towards the end. Justin Gaethje will land the better shots, I think, as the fight goes on. So third, fourth, and fifth round, I'm going to probably bank for Justin Gaethje. Maybe the third round is going to be super close. I think the second and third round will probably be super close in general. First round, it's kind of a toss-up. I kind of want to see what that looks like a little bit more, but Dustin Poirier, I'm not completely writing him off here. I think this is more of like a 50-50 fight in my mind, and if not like a 55-45 just because of the altitude benefiting Justin Gaethje in this matchup. But for Dustin Poirier, he's the kind of guy, if he hurts you, he does not let you go. He will finish you. Like, he will not let you go. He will inflict as much damage as he can. And not too long ago, Justin Gaethje did say that it felt like batteries when he was getting hit by Charles Oliveira, and which kind of led me to picking Fiziev in his next matchup, to where I kind of thought that Justin Gaethje's chin might have been going a little bit more, but he showed to be really tough in his last matchup. He does not go down without a fight, obviously, and I think in this matchup, he will continue to have some success here. Everything's kind of in his favor here. If he sticks to the game plan of just being patient, landing the leg kicks, I guess the body is a little bit more open for Justin Gaethje here, and maybe Dustin Poirier can kind of even it out on the cardio in that aspect. But I think use the leg kicks. You're in Salt Lake City, Utah. You have all the benefits of conditioning into the later rounds, even though, of course, Dustin Poirier is a very conditioned fighter. I think he's coming out to Salt Lake City, Utah, like 7 or 8 days before. So that is kind of worrying, but he will get a little bit acclimated. It kind of showed in the last card that didn't really do too much. So I'm going with Justin Gaethje decision, 48-47. It's easier to kind of say he'll win like the last 3 rounds and Dustin Poirier will win the first 2, because obviously that never really works out, but I think that's kind of how it'll go. 48-47. I think as the fight goes on, Justin Gaethje will probably land the better shots. Dustin Poirier will probably be looking more towards the body and trying to mix it up and just try to tire out Justin Gaethje. That way, Justin Gaethje is going to look for the legs, and he's going to look to land some really good hooks on Dustin Poirier in this matchup. So I am going to go with Justin Gaethje, 48-47 decision. Let me know who you guys think wins down below in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time.